jumping into game number 2 here. Texas A&M throwing out the Hunter. And Florida Gulf Coast looks like they're going to throw out a Control Warrior deck.
Yeah, and this is one of those matchups that can get so difficult for Control Warrior if the Hunter ends up curving out right. You know, we talked about how Mysterious Challenger was providing this instance where if your opponent had to remove a minion first, it was unlikely they could deal with that power 6-drop. Well, Savannah Highmane's about one of the most powerful 6-drops in the game. And at times, it is just the most powerful one in the game. And since a deck like Control Warrior is just trying to fight a card advantage battle, they oftentimes just can't kill the Highmane and the remaining hyenas from it.
Yeah.
And so they just find themselves in a spot where they have been out-attritioned by a deck that isn't based on attrition.
There are some times where mid-range hunters can just not have a good curve. They can, you know, draw into a lot of spells early on and just not draw into their creatures or not have board pressure. And when you give a Control Warrior room like that, they'll run away with it because they'll get health totals that are going to be out of your range. They'll take the time to acquire pieces of removal that they'll be able to save up and use later on in those big threats that they didn't have to use early on like well curved out creatures. So we'll see. That is one of those hands that, well, it got better with the Haunted Creeper, but it was looking pretty poor at first for Texas A&M.
I totally agree with you too. I think Warrior is one of the decks that punishes poor starts more than just about anything else out there. You know, Druid can certainly do it, Hunter can certainly do it, but Warrior does it in a very different way. Which is like you said, they just find the time to find the right removal spells and then just have an answer to everything that you do. You know, you take a look at some of the other matchups. If you stumble with something and your opponent gets a lead, it's tough to fight from behind. You kind of hope they stumble back.
Yeah.
But if you're fighting against a Warrior deck and you stumble and you give them that kind of time, it like the amount of percentage of times that you win goes from like, you know, like 30-ish to like almost nothing.
Yeah.
Because they just have everything to close the game out. And that's really the strength of that deck, is that it can have those answers.
Haunted Creeper thrown down for Texas A&M. It's a tough card to deal with. But Despite,
it's an annoying card to deal with.
Yeah,
that's the thing about
tough is not really the way to put it. I think annoying is just, it's just a Haunted Creeper. I'll deal with it later.
You know, I actually saw when Purple was playing a lot of Rogue, it was kind of still really one of the best decks in the metagame. I would see him sap Haunted Creepers. And I would go, whoa, Purple, why are you sapping the Haunted Creeper? And he's like, well, Firebat and I had just started counting how much damage unsapped Haunted Creepers would deal, and on average it was like 6 or 7. So we just started sapping it. I was like, that's actually not that bad of an idea.
Yeah.
And he was winning a lot of games where I think he would have otherwise lost. And he just not sapped a Haunted Creeper. It was a very interesting situation.
Yeah, I put Kidnappers in my deck just to deal with Haunted Creepers.
Yeah, this 6-mana guy really takes care of those 2-mana 1/2s super well.
Yeah.
Second Armorsmith is a, you know, the first Armorsmith is usually like, gosh, that's painful. The second one can often be backbreaking.
Yeah. Because they double up. It's like exponential how much armor they deal.
Now, the problem here is that Florida Gulf Coast has to think about the implications of leaving this Haunted Creeper around for a turn. You know, say they choose to play the second Armorsmith and just attack and say go. Texas A&M can follow that with a Houndmaster, give that guy +2/+2 and taunt, and suddenly you're looking at a much more difficult minion to deal with. So the caveat to that is they have Shield Block and Shield Slam, or they have Despite. So how they actually handle this situation, there's a lot of different ways to do it. I think Bash is even a totally fine answer too.
Yeah.
You know, the coin can have so much value in this matchup. You know, we talked about it. Warrior, it needs to get those endgame points, and Hunter is trying to basically push that endgame just a little bit forward with the way that its minions are played. And so because of that, they think that this coin is going to be valuable to them at some point, and that the Bash is kind of clunky and difficult to use. Just going to play on curve, play to their strengths, make sure that they extend their life as much as they can, and have the right answers late game.
Yeah, and you can see Texas A&M just not curving out well. Just not really any creatures to play on these middle turns. They do have, you know, that 1-2 punch for mid-range turn on the Lotheb on 5, Savannah Hyman on 6. But again, we talked about it earlier, giving that Control Warrior time. Florida Gulf Coast has had time to build up these removals and build up that armor count. And now they've been able to hold on to the coin without taking much of a beating. So they're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, without taking much of a beating. They're actually at 31 effective right now.
Yeah.
So they've taken a reverse beating.
Yeah. They put some... No. I was going to say they put some armor on, but they literally put armor on.
The face paint's their armor.
Yes.
I mean, they're just like, that's straight out of Braveheart. They're just ready to go.
Yeah.
Fight for your countrymen.
Severe lacking of beards. One guy has a beard, but far away.
There are no lacking of beards where I am.
Yeah, they're deciding what to do here. It's a little bit of a tough situation. Drawing into that fireworks makes things a little complicated. They're probably thinking, you know, they've had a poor curve. What are they going to play on 5?
Yeah, exactly. And so usually what that answer is something big. You know, or nothing at all. If either one of those, they're totally okay with. The other thing too is they're going to kill the web spinner to again continue to try to prevent Houndmaster turns. They could potentially be giving their opponent a 5-drop beast, and so having the Deathbite set down, not only is this kind of freeing up the mana that's tied in your hand, it's also setting up that whirlwind effect. It's making sure you can answer the next thing that's going on. It's really just, I think, the least efficient answer in their hand right now. And so because of that, just expend the mana on it. Do you really need to armor up? Do you really need the Armor Smith down? Like, so much is just going their way right now, and that's really the Warrior deck, because if nothing's happening, usually they're totally okay with that.
Yeah. Exactly what they want, because there's not many decks that can, out late game a Control Warrior. They have so many high-impact cards that, it takes a while to get there, but that's what the deck's made for.
Even if your deck is, like, dedicated to being a late-game deck, Warrior can still get the edge there.
Yeah.
And that's really the scary part about this deck is you don't really feel comfortable unless you're just totally blowing them out of the water.
All right, Florida Gulf Coast draws into a Sludge Belcher, which is actually a pretty good draw. Allows them to play something on curve. They're probably worried about, what's sitting behind that Jungle Panther. Is there going to be a Houndmaster that's going to allow them to trade? Do we even care? Because then it'll leave it at 1 health, and, we can whirlwind it down with the Deathbite.
Yeah, I mean, the Crouching Tiger is certainly presenting like a nuisance, I guess is really the right word. It's not like a major threat, but there's not actually a way to kill it in their hand right now. And again, that's what this deck's trying to do. It just wants to kill everything at every step of the way. So the Sludge Belcher does give them that little extra push to, help fight through this. But again, if they play the Sludge Belcher, and Texas A&M has a Houndmaster, that Sludge Belcher didn't do a ton of work. And they also have to consider Iron Beak Owl, they have to think about Hunter's Mark, they have to think about just what if Savannah Highmane hits the board. Like, a lot of considerations go into this turn, and it's tough to find one of these plays that's just outright better than the other ones.
Yeah, very true.
I think this one's good because this is really enticing that Jungle Panther to attack at this Armor Smith, which sets up the Deathbite very well. But now Texas A&M, this hand dynamic really changed. I mean, prior to this, it was looking like Savannah Highmane, go ahead. But now with the Ram Wrangler, this is a spot where they may just want to get value out of it right away. You have to have a beast for that card to work. If you don't have a beast on the board, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But they do have the Jungle Panther and stealth too. They might just not unveil it.
With Ram Wrangler, you can just play that and get a Savannah Highmane.
Yeah.
It's possible.
It definitely is. Oh. You can just get a King Crush if you wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really hard to pass up a turn 6 Savannah Highmane, though.
I would venture to say that Jungle Panther stands stealth, yeah. So I really like this play. Again, looked like Florida Gulf Coast is just enticing you to attack with this Jungle Panther.
Yeah.
And when your opponent's laying up a play for you that's this obvious and easy, you got to look at it and go, what's really the plan here? That Deathbite, it's not really hidden, but if your opponent's going to give it to you, don't let them walk you into that trap. Do anything to just make it that much more awkward for them. And so Florida Gulf Coast, once again, in a situation where they might have to attack with this Deathbite anyway, but it's just everything looks like a difficult decision still from their side of the board.
Yeah, and their hand right now is pretty much all removal. They can't clear the board in total, but they can deal with the Savannah Highmane with the Shield Slam, and then maybe
there's the Hidden Dragon.
Deal with both of the 1/1s. Oh, yeah. I see what you did there. You were setting that one up.
That was a big setup.
Many turns in advance.
I've been thinking about that one for months.
Oh, God, I hope he draws a dragon this game.
I was thinking about that one I've actually been thinking about that one for months, by the way.
So you were waiting, you thought about it like months ago, and you're like, wow, if somebody plays a Jungle Panther, I could say Crouching Tiger. And then if they play a dragon, I could say Hidden Dragon.
Yeah, it also works for Stranglethorn Tiger.
Whoa!
Mind blown. Knife Juggler is a really interesting play in this spot. I mean, they might just use it because when are you going to use Unleash the Hounds?
Yeah.
But they have
Ram Wrangler.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is they have some very powerful plays right now. I'm a little bit surprised that Knife Juggler is their first instinct. Unless they're going to go Knife Juggler, Ram Wrangler.
Then you get 2 juggles.
Yeah.
I think that's a very reasonable play.
Can you get more than 2 juggles? Is there any way to get more than 2 juggles with the Ram Wrangler?
No. Well, you can get, like, Tundra Rhino.
Well, you can also get Mookless Champion, which,
oh, man!
On this board, that is, I mean, that's like priority threat number 1 at the moment. If you use your hero power with Mookless Champion, all your other guys get +1/+1 permanently.
Yeah. It's basically an immediate, like, with 3 creatures on the board besides Mookless Champion, deal 5, and then they get to keep those extra stats. So.
Yeah, this is very dangerous for Florida Gulf Coast. I mean, I look at this hand, and that Fiery War Axe has to be pointed at Mookless Champion. No question about it. So the Ram Wrangler now, it's gotten a charge of Fiery War Axe. It's already dealt 4 damage, and it still leaves a 3/3 body on board. Like, this is exactly what this card is designed to do, is just be a gigantic nuisance.
Yeah, pretty sick. And all of a sudden, Texas A&M with a rough start. It looks like they might be mounting a little bit of a comeback. And I think Florida Gulf Coast is going to execute this Jungle Panther to get rid of any B synergy.
Yeah, it feels bad, man.
It does feel bad.
Using Execute as an effective 1 point of damage is not really where that card wants to be directed. But if you're pulling 4 power off the board, you know, it doesn't really feel too terrible. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. Florida Gulf Coast still sitting at 27 health, though, so they haven't really managed to take much damage, but they are slowly losing control of the board.
Wow, not going to choose to use Hunter's Mark first to try to juggle this guy off. They're just going to be content with Freezing Trap delaying this attack, and they're going to be looking for the Hunter's Mark next turn. So this does give them a little bit of proactivity here, but I'm curious if this is going to pay off.
Yeah, Florida Gulf Coast does have the option of playing Baron Geddon here. If they play Dr. Boom, they're very vulnerable to Unleash the Hounds, which doesn't usually get much value in this matchup. And the trap might indicate that. The trap, along with Texas A&M not really playing much of anything until turn 5, might give away the fact that they do have Unleash. So it feels like Baron Geddon is the right play, and that attack means...
That means Baron Geddon.
Yeah.
Yeah, something else is happening here, too, is they check for Snake Trap when they make that attack. You know, sir, they would get the juggles out of it, but then they're taking out the Snake Trap, they're taking out the Knife Trap, they're taking out the Loatheb. This is about the best spot they could be in. This Freezing Trap is almost completely neutralized to this point. And with Kill Command in hand, you know, that's a card that you really want to point upstairs and make that final push with. It looks like Texas A&M is going to have to be on defense this game, though, as the aggressor.
Yeah.
And that's a terrifying
That
thing.
also feels bad.
Yeah.
And they're deliberating here. It does feel really rough to have to throw that Kill Command into a big threat, but to be honest, leaving Baron Geddon up, even though it's dealing 2 damage to the Warrior every turn, they can negate it with their hero power, and also, it's pretty much clearing your board every turn as well, so you have to find a way to deal with it at some point.
Yeah, and this is where the Hunter deck oftentimes will fall to pieces, is they went through their mid game, everything they had got answered, your opponent's still at a relatively safe life total, and they have a big threat on the board that you have to take care of. Now, they don't have to take care of it here. They could, you know, try to play this a little bit more clever, but if they do, that's a big risk of just completely falling out of the game. Yeah. I don't think they can afford that. So they're just going to make their sacrifices, Kill Command this, protect that Freezing Trap as well, and hope that their draws and their hero power is enough to get this game done.
But look at this. They're out of cards.
In Florida Gulf Coast hand, I mean, which power plays better?
Yeah, Dr. Boom allows them to armor up. Ysera allows them to have Ysera.
Which I don't even think the extra cards that matter right now. I think just you just saw it Unleash the Hounds too. I think this is perfect.
Yeah.
And this is threatening the Freezing Trap. Your opponent, if they don't kill the Dr. Boom, you just get a second Dr. Boom.
Yeah, or the Boom Bot.
Or a second Boom Bot.
Oh my god.
To
it's
replay.
even more powerful than the Dr. Boom. Dr. Boom gets countered by BGH. Boom Bots get countered by nothing.
Only fate can counter Boom Bots. Yeah, and so Texas A&M, you know, it's unfortunate for them as Houndmaster. This is a card that you're looking to seize the early game tempo with and really drive the action with. Having it on turn 4 when you already have a beast in play. Drawing it on turn 10 where the beast that you want to use it on is going to have to take out the Dr. Boom anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Not where they want to be, and so at this point, the game might have fallen to pieces.
Yeah, and they might be realizing it. Hero power, it's just such a bad spot to be in. It's so demoralizing as well.
You just got to look at the spot and go, how do we win this game? And the answer is
you don't.
Florida Gulf Coast has to draw pretty much dead for the rest of this game. And
with a Control Warrior, you're not really drawing dead, because even if you draw dead, you're still kind of doing something.
Yeah.
You're armoring up, you're gaining health, you're removing creatures. You might not be playing anything of your own, but you're delaying until you do draw into the stuff that matters.
Yeah, they're trying to find an answer here, and I don't think there is one. So they're going to make their best of it, but just like you said, it's pretty tough for a Warrior to draw dead. You know, it's a lot like Druid when it gets to these stages. They just have power draw after power draw. Yeah. Well, that may not be a power draw. It certainly is a removal spell, so they can get to the next power draw.
Exactly.
So there comes the Freezing Trap, which, I mean, the value on that has been completely negated.
Yeah, the Boombot's buddy is going to avenge him.
I wonder how much Boombot would have to cost if it was just a card by itself. I think 2 mana would be fine. And here we go. Ysera dreams and the world trembles. And if I'm Texas A&M, I'm trembling right now.
Yeah. And they go ahead and concede and throw out the thank you. So that's going to be Florida Gulf Coast University taking a 2-0 lead and getting the high fives.